Okay.
So today we'll be doing Image Hashem Daf Membav and Beis. So we are right now we are discussing why was it necessary for Rabbi Shua ben Levi to say the halacha is kedivrei hamekel be'eruvin, and also to make the statement the halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, because there was a machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chachamim. If somebody, the Mishnah, if somebody fell asleep in the middle of the road between two places, and he woke up, he realized that Shabbos came in, he went to sleep before Shabbos, and he did not think to be koine shvisa in that place. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says he has 2,000 amos as a Tchum Shabbos around him, and the Chachamim say that he only has Daled Amos. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is mekel, and even though the person did not have kavanah to be koine shvisa, nevertheless you're koine shvisa. So therefore the question is, why was it necessary for Rabbi Shua ben Levi to say both statements, that halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and halacha kedivrei hamekel be'eruvin, when Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is the mekel. So Papa Amar Itzkele. So we had a previous teretz in the Gemara. We had a previous teretz in the Gemara earlier on, and now is another teretz that Papa Amar, that the reason why we need both statements from Rabbi Shua ben Levi that halacha is like Kedivrei Mekel and that halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, because it's the Salkatayt Chamina with the thought Hanim Mila Be'erev. I would have thought that when we're talking about Erev Chetzeres, but Erev Chetzeres, that the halacha is kedivrei hamekel. So if you would not say halacha is Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, I would think that that Eruvin, when they read the klal, which we say Eruvin, is only referring to Erev Chetzeres. But be'erev tchumin emeloi. But be'erev tchumin, I would say we don't take a divrei hamekel, and therefore we would not know that we pass like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So that's why we need to have both statements. Now the Gemara says, so what was the reason why we need to have both statements? Because we would have thought to differentiate between erev tchumin and Erev Chetzeres, making Erev Chetzeres more lenient than Erev Tchumin. So the Gemara says, why would you have thought? I mean, not Tamra. What would be the basis, the Shonilon, that we should make a difference between Erev Chetzeres and Erev Tchumin? What is the basis that Erev Chetzeres is more lenient than Erev Tchumin? So the Gemara answers this now, was learned Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Bamed Var Mamurim. When is it that you cannot be zeicha and erev for somebody without the person agreeing to it? So the Mishnah there speaks about if you don't have the person's agreement, without the person's agreement, without the person's knowledge, you cannot make an erev tchumin to be zeicha for another person. So it says erev tchumin, you cannot be zeicha for another person. When you you'll put on an erev for another person without him having knowledge about it beforehand. Al be'erev chetzeres, but when it comes to erev chetzeres, ma'arvin, you can make an erev chetzeres ben l'das ben shelo l'das. So if, for instance, you have a number of people living in a block of flats, or a number of people living in a chotzer, come a batim in a chotzer, so one person can make the erev chetzeres for everybody, and he'll take a piece of challah, etc., and give it to somebody to be zeicha for everybody, and therefore not all the neighbors have to be aware that this person making erev chetzeres. He can make him erev chetzeres for everybody, and be zeicha for them, and without them being aware. Bein l'das, bein shelo l'das. Why? The reason is because Erev Tzeres, at the end of the day, Erev Tzeres, it's something positive. Because now all the neighbors will be able to carry between themselves and in the communal area. So it's a schus. They now have extra space and where to carry. So therefore, it's a schus. You can do shleil lefanov without asking the person, not in front of him and without asking him. You can do. You can be zeicha for somebody without asking him. For instance, if I go in the street, I can be zeicha metzia, pick up something for somebody. Even shleil lefanov, even didn't ask me. Zochel adam shleil lefanov. The ein chavin le'adam el b'fan. But if you make an erev, so if you make an erev that you should be able to walk outside the city in one particular direction to give him extra a place to walk. But if you're giving him in one side of the city, you're giving him extra place to walk. So then in the other side, you'll be losing that amount of space in the other side of the city. So it's a chayva. Even though it could be that a person wants to walk to the same event that you want to walk to. Yeah, you're going to make one for yourself, or you're going there. The person probably is a friend of yours and he wants to walk with you. But in the end of the day, it is a chayiv, because meanwhile you're diminishing his area which he can walk in the other direction. So therefore, that you can own anything which has in it an element of chayiv. If it has in it an element of chayiv, you can't do it only with the person's permission. So we see over here that by Erev Tzeres is more lenient than Erev Tchumin. So therefore, I would have thought it could have been when Rabbi Levi says that halacha gedivra hamekel be'erevin, you could have thought that by it's only referring to Erev Tzeres, which is more lenient, and it doesn't refer to Erev Tchumin. That's why it needed to repeat and say that the halacha is like Rabbi in our case of Erev Tchumin. Rav Ashi says another teretz of why we need to say both statements. Rabbi Levi needs to say both statements. It's something about Chamin. I would have thought Hanim il b'shura erev, because I would have thought that when are we lenient? The halacha being lenient, that halacha gedivra mekel is only b'shura erev, is only when the leftovers of an erev. So that means you made a proper erev, but then later, then the erev chetzeres, for instance, if you have an erev chetzeres, if you put an erev, and then some of the put matzahs or whatever it was, and the food later got less. So chatchila, there's a certain amount how much food you have to put. There's a minimum amount of food which you have to put. But over the weeks, it's lying there for a few weeks. Over the weeks, it got less. So then it doesn't matter if it goes less, as long as there's something left. That's okay. So and it's still kosher. The area is still kosher. So there we pass like the lenient opinion in that area. So therefore, I would have thought that this what Rabbi Levi said, how that we go Be'erev and we go Kedibra HaMekel is B'shura Erev. That when originally the area was made proper. Originally the area was made properly, and later when later diminished the amounts diminished, then it's not so important, and so therefore we can go with Divrei HaMekel. However, B'tchilas Erev, but when you're setting up the Erev in the beginning, when you're setting up the Erev, Eimeloi, I would have thought that then you when you set up the Erev, then it has to be. Then you can't be lenient. Once the Erev is set up, you can take a lenient opinion. But for setting up the Erev, you don't necessarily follow the lenient opinion. And our case of Rabbi Yochanan ben Uri, we're talking about that he slept there in the beginning of Shabbos. The question is whether he's kind of the tchum or not, and that's Tchilas Erev. I thought Tchilas Erev, maybe we don't accept the lenient opinion. That's why he needs to restate that the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Uri. Now the Gemara says, "We're not Tamra. What makes you think the Shani Lon ben Shura Erev with Tchilas Erev? What's the basis of thinking that there is a difference between um, the leftovers of the Erev. Once the Erev has already been set up, and then what remains of the Erev, there we follow. There we go more lenient with Tchilas Erev. Setting up the Erev should be more. Then we don't. It's more strict. So after the Erev is set up, it's already more lenient than the beginning when we set up the Erev. What makes us think there's such a difference? So it says this now because when the Mishnah that we see in the Mishnah there's a difference between the setting up of the Erev originally and when once the Erev has already been set up and issues happen then. It's now Omer Gesi said that we have to have the minimum amount. There's an amount of how much each person has to contribute to the Erev egregores. And some more details to it anyway, but there's a minimum amount. When is this a minimum amount applied? It's Chilas Erev. When setting up the Erev, Al B'Shur Erev, but when it's left over the Erev, like it's gone through a few weeks and some of the food has disappeared, it's done. I feel the cultural. So even if a small amount, any amount is good for the Erev. Because the Emes, V'loi Omru La'arich Tzeres, they did not say that you should make an Erev Tzeres. In other words, that the Bechal by Erev Tzeres they didn't need really a shear. They didn't really need the shear for Erev Tzeres. Therefore, it's good enough even if less. So, but the reason why you made the Erev Tzeres is the Loi Omer La'arich Tzeres El Kadei Shelei Lishkach Teres Erev Min HaKtenekes. That for future generations, people should see there is a concept of Erev. So therefore, when you set up the Erev, you have to make the proper Erev, and there's a minimum share. Now, the whole minimum share by Erev Tzeres, the whole minimum share, really, we would not need to make a minimum share by Erev Tzeres, even for the setting up. But the Poel, we do have a minimum share for the setting up of Erev Tzeres, because in order that people should remember the concept of Erev. And why did they need to remember the concept of Erev? Because let's always have it without a share. I mean, because it is Erev Tchumen. Erev Tchumen needs to have a proper share. So since Erev Tchumen needs to have a proper share, so Erev Tchumen is not something which people see the whole time. It doesn't happen regularly. The Erev Tzeres happens regularly. So therefore, since you have this type of Erev and that type of Erev, so when it came to Erev Tzeres, the Chachamim, they made a point of having a proper share, so that people should remember that there is such a thing, that Erev needs a proper share, and the most important to remember that is concerning Erev Tchumen, because this is the day-to-day life. You see Erev Tzeres, and that's what they wanted to make their point. Okay, so let's get the Kitzur Hadvarim. So the bottom line is, the Poel, we do see that there is a difference from the beginning of the Erev and the end of the Erev. So you see the Erev Tzeres, whatever the reasoning which we just now learned, the reasoning behind it. But at the end of the day, so you see that to create the Erev, the Chachamim would be more strict and it would be more lenient when it comes later. So therefore, if we'd say Divrei HaMekel, we would not know that putting up the Erev, we can also follow Divrei HaMekel, would say, putting up the Erev, maybe that is something which has to be done properly. I mean, the Chachamim could be makbid for the same reason, even B'Shiyuri Erev. They could have, I'm just adding something, the Chachamim could have been makbid, even B'Shiyuri Erev, they could have been makbid. I mean, because for future generations, people should remember. So yes, you have to set up the Erev properly, and later when the Erev still has to remain, there has to have the share. Yeah, but so never the Chacham did not do that. Yeah, so you see your arm makel, you do differentiate between the beginning of the Erev and the setting up the Erev and the Shur Erev for whatever reason it is, but you make that line of difference. So therefore, with the thought about Erev Tchumen as well, with the thought that that this whole cloud only applies to the end of an Erev, not to setting up Erev. Setting up Erev is something is more strict. So that's why I need again to repeat halacha like the minority. Rabbi Yankiv Rabbi Zrika, Omru, they said halacha Rabbi Akiva, b'chaveri. So Rabbi Kiva, when he argues with Yochid neged the Yochid, one against one, so the halacha will always be like Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Yosi b'chavera. Rabbi Yosi is the halacha like Rabbi Yosi even against the Rabbi. Rabbi, and halacha is always like Rabbi b'chavera. It's Yochid against Yochid. On one side is Rabbi, so it's always halacha is like Rabbi. So the Mai Hilchasa. According to Rashi, there are times when you have machlekes, and we learned that we pass on halacha like one. So there are times when there's a machlekes, and after machlekes there was an agreement that halacha is like this side or that side. So whenever we learn that halacha is like one side, then that's not what we need. This what Rabbi Yankiv and Rabbi Zika are saying. They are saying in the absence of having the conclusion that which way the halacha is, in the absence of having a conclusion which way the halacha is. So in all those situations, we have the halacha will always be Rabbi Kiva against his friend, and Rabbi Yossi against even a Rabbi, and a Rabbi against his friend. The Mai Hilchasa. So what is the Mahal means? What is the strength of this halacha? This halacha, which we learned that which we learned that halacha is like Rabbi Kiva or like Rabbi Yosi. What strength is this? Is it a clear cut agreed halacha? I mean, in other words, that was agreed. It was agreed that whenever you have these arguments, always the halacha is going to be like one of them. Is that the pshat, or it's not? And therefore it will always apply that it was agreed that the halacha should always be like Rabbi Kiva and like Rabbi and Rabbi Yosi was agreed, or it's not the pshat that's agreed, except that at the end of the day, you should follow. It's like a general. It's a svara. Rashi says, "Dum misvara ba'alma." Means Rabbi Kiva, he's the more senior one. He's the more learned one. We should follow him. So therefore, since his opinion is a better opinion. So so it doesn't. So therefore, it's not absolute halacha. So in other words, is it the my halacha? So the question is it absolute halacha? Because that was agreed somewhere. That we should follow this klal, or this is just a general view that probably the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi, because they are the more senior ones or whatever. So let's see. So Ravasi Omar halach. Ravasi says it's a halach. So. Rabbi Chiba Abba Omer Matin. Rabbi Chiba, so according to Rasi, that's the way you paskin. That's the way you paskin. That you always that's the way you paskin. That's the way you teach. So according to that, you teach people. That's the right way. Rabbi Chiba Abba Omer Matin. Rabbi Chiba says Matin means that according to Rashi, Matin means that privately you'll tell somebody, but you don't say that in public. So it's not halacha which is in public. Privately you say that. So according to Rashi halacha, that's the way you give in the shurim. That's the way you publish. That's the way the halacha is. That like according to this klal. And Rabbi Chiba Abba says individually a person will ask you. You'll apply this klal, but you don't say this. This is not so absolute that you can say it in Barabim for a drasha. Nirin means that if somebody did like that, it's okay. Now, we have, especially over here, we have the opinion that Rabbi Yossi is a yochid, goes against Chavero, it goes against the Rabbim. So especially when you have the yochid going against the Rabbim, so according to Nirin, according to the opinion of Nirin, so you certainly wouldn't tell, even individually you wouldn't tell you should pass like the Rabbim, like the yochid against the Rabbim. Of course, you should tell him do the Rabbim, but still Rabbi Yossi is so good that even when the Rabbim, if somebody does it, but the ever he does it, so you don't have to go against him, etc. So, but the ever it's okay. That's what Nirin. Yeah. So, but the ever it's okay. Amar Rabbi Yaakov Idam Rabbi Yechanan, the Rabbi Meir Rabbi Huda. Sorry, I'm gonna start the words. Kiloshen Hazeh Amar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi Amar Rabbi Yechanan. That the same type of the same lashon, which will have the same argument of what it means, is concerning of what Rabbi Yechanan says about the following. So that's going to be the same lashon, and it's going to be the same. So the debate: what is the status of when we say the halacha? So Amar Rabbi Yechanan, the Meir Rabbi Huda. If you have an argument with Rabbi Huda, Allah Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Huda Rabbi Yossi, Allah Rabbi Yossi. Ain't Tzarich Lema for sure. Rabbi Meir Rabbi Yossi, Allah Rabbi Yossi. Hashta the Mokim Rabbi Huda lesser. If Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda, the halacha is like Rabbi Huda. So the Mokim Rabbi Yossi, who Rabbi Huda and Rabbi Yossi, Allah is like Rabbi Yossi for sure. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, Allah is like Rabbi Yossi. The Mokim Rabbi Yossi Mibai. Right. And so again, so in this thing again, we had like the same opinions will apply. Is the pshat halacha that it's a clear cut halacha? That's what you say berabim, or that's what you say only individually, or whether halacha means the b'di'evet with Caroline. Okay. Omer Avasi, Afani loimed Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yossi. So Avasi says, I say that that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Shimon, when they argue, Allah is a Rabbi Yossi. The Amr Rabbi Yechanan. What's my proof from? That because Rabbi said name Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Shimon, Allah Rabbi Huda. So the Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Shimon, you follow Rabbi Huda. Is Hashtem claim Rabbi Huda lesser? So if Rabbi Shimon is probably Rabbi Shimon ben Yechoyah, by the way. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda. So certainly, the Mokim Rabbi Yehuda lesser, Mokim basically boys. So sure, if Rabbi Shimon argues Rabbi Yossi, Allah is like Rabbi Yossi. Iboilu. What's the question is the Meir Rabbi Shimon Mal. So the Meir Rabbi Shimon, when they argue, so these are all from one generation, all these Tanoim. And so Rabbi Rabbi Shimon, which one do you follow, Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Shimon? Teku. There's no answer. Yeah, it's interesting that even though the halacha is not like them, not like Rabbi Shimon, not Rabbi Yossi, in all these cases, Rabbi Meir sort of is at the end of the list of the halacha being like him, and so is Rabbi Shimon at the end of the list. And we don't even know Rabbi Shimon which one takes precedence, but so the halacha sort of is against them. But at the end of the day, when Talmidim Rabbi Akiva, they were the top Talmidim. The Meir is Meir Ein Chacham Ba'alacha. Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Akiva said, "Who knows you? Don't worry, nobody knows enough for you that I and your Creator know your greatness." So they were. It seems the other way around. Allah is not like them because it was so great that nobody would appreciate the greatness. Nobody was able to understand the depth. That's why the Allah is like so the Allah is actually doesn't mean that they were the less Talmid Chachamim. It seems to be the other way around. Anyway, Amar Rav Shashi says less than the Halikloi. Rav Shashi does not agree with all these kolim. It says that it's not true these kolim. No Rav Shashi, or where does Rav Shashi take it from? So now the Gemara is going through a whole trying to find where does Mishashet, what's the basis of Mishashet that he does not agree with all these klolim of the halachas. Ilme, let's say Mahodis now that we learn the Mishnah of Shimon Lamad. So we're saying in our Mishnah we said that if you have two people are outside the tchum, three people are outside the tchum, and so they only have the aldamas, and if the aldamas overlap, so you have the three people, you have one to the right, one to the left, and one in the center. So if the right and the center overlap, the center and the left overlap, so the right and the center can meet in the area which overlaps, and the center and the left can also meet and eat together in the area where they overlap, but the right and the left they cannot meet. The right, yeah. So the right, but the right and left they cannot meet together. But that was in the Mishnah, and Shimon he brings a sort of a similarity to that din. He brings it like another din which is similar to that. The Gimel Chatzeres Hapsuchos Ubuzu, that three Chatzeres which are open to each other, Upsuchos Rabim, and this is part of it in our Mishnah. That the three individual Chatzeres mean they have their own entrance from the Rishus Rabim, and now then they made. But there's also entrance between each one of the Chatzeres is open to the other one. So you also have a right, left, and the center. So Irvish Time Chetzenis Imam Tzoyis, to the right and the left, each one made an individual Erev with the center. Did not make an Erev for all of them together. Just the right made the Erev with the center, and the left made the Erev with the center. Irvish Time Chetzenis Imam Tzoyis Himu Teresimon veHimu Teresimon. So the center one is able to use to go into and the right and the center are able to mingle, and the center in the Chetzeres, the center and the left are able to mingle. But the right and the center they cannot carry from one to the other. And the Chambaguri said, "Allah Reb Shimon, that Allah is like Reb Shimon." And who is the one that argues on Reb Shimon? That's Rabbi Huda. Because so who's the one that argues and that says that somebody argues and says they cannot eat with each other, so that they cannot mingle at all. So there's another opinion in a brisa that says that they cannot mingle at all. So when they overlap, when Chum overlap, so who is that opinion? That opinion is Rabbi Huda. So Amras, you said, and what do we say? Allah Reb Shimon. So Amras, you said Rabbi Huda, Shimon, Allah Reb Huda. You said Allah Reb Shimon, Shimon, Allah Reb Huda. So Elav Shmaminu Lesno. So we see that that it's the cloud of Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Shimon, Allah is like Rabbi Huda is not true. We've disproved it because we know that Allah in this case of the Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon, even though Rabbi Huda argues on it. Rashi takes a bit of time to explain how we know that Rabbi Huda is arguing on Rabbi Shimon, and something about that in the Mishnah. We have Rabbi Huda mentioned in the Mishnah earlier, before that, and Rashi infers that it seems that Rabbi Huda doesn't just argue on. It argues just argue that Rabbi Huda argues also that when he infers, and when Rabbi Huda, the Mishnah argues also on this case of Rabbi Shimon, and that's what the Gemara here is referring. So, Gemara says, "My question: what kind of question is this? What kind of proof is this?" Dilma, yes, true. It could be that halacha is like Rabbi Shimon against Rabbi Huda, but that's only when it was when we have a conclusion. When we have a conclusion, we learn the conclusion is halacha Rabbi Shimon. Yes, sometimes halacha is Rabbi Shimon, but we're talking about in the absence of a conclusion. The absence of a conclusion. All these klolim we learned before are in the absence of a conclusion. And so therefore, this is not contradiction to these klolim. The fact that we hear Rabbi Chaim Baguria said the name of Rabbi Allah. Sorry. So bring in another proof. It's not Irsha Yachid, but Nasa Shorabim. So if Ir, which doesn't have 600,000, and it got 600,000, so it was originally Irshal Yachid, and it became bigger, more people came, and you have 600,000. So Ma'arvin is Kula. So you can make all of it as an Erev, but Nasis, so it's Ma'arvin is Kula. So you can have an Erev on the whole city. Because it started up as a Irshal Yachid of less than 600,000, so therefore you can make an Erev in the whole city. But what's the other way around? If it started up Rabbi V'Nashal Yachid, if it started up as a city of 600,000, V'Nashal Yachid, then it became less people. Ein Me'arvin es Kula. So even though it became less people, you don't make you don't make an Erev on the whole city. Because you don't want an Erev of 600,000 people. You don't want to make an Erev. If it starts up less, then it's okay. But generally, in a city which is 600,000, you don't make an Erev for the whole city. You leave part of the city out. You make an Erev of different areas, but not one Erev for the city. So, if it started off as an Irshal Rabbi, it was 600,000, and it became less than 600,000. Ein Ma'arvin as Kula. You don't make the Erev on all of it, on the whole city. Even right now, it's less than 600,000. So you can make an Erev for the whole city, but you should leave 50 houses where he should make. You should make 50 houses where 50 houses which are not part of that, which are not part of the Erev. So as long as it leaves 50 houses not in the Erev, that's fine, and then you can make it the Erev of the whole of the city, the whole rest of the city. You can make an Erev. That's what Rabbi says. You don't leave out so many. If you have 3 chatzeres of 2 houses, so each chatzer has 2 houses. In total, 6 houses, 3 chatzeres. Each one has 2 houses. That's if you left that, which is not included in the Erev, that's fine. So he's being makel. So you see also, so the Rav passing Allah Reb Shimon. Who's the person who's arguing over there? It's Rabbi Huda. He said so therefore, we see that that klal of Rabbi Huda does not apply. So that's why Rabbi Shashia doesn't agree with all these clauses. So Gemara again refutes it and says there's no proof really. Yeah, there's no proof, because when it was concluded that the halach is one way or the other, then of course we don't follow these clauses if it was concluded. But the absence of any conclusion, that is when these clauses apply. So there's no proof that these clauses do not apply.